while he was playing, and it brought back memories to me. Precious memories, how they linger. I got to thinking just a minute ago about how in this church named Savannah Wallace. All the children had to sit with her on the first Sunday, right where that young man is sitting right there. And if you thought you were grown enough and you weren't that little, you wanted to get away from that group and sit somewhere else, she would come get you. I thought about Bunny Shaw saying an Easter speech and a hair catcher on fire. Thought about picnics that LaneTabernacleCME would have, going to Kentucky Lake or Chickasaw Park or whatever. Just all those things just came by me just in that split second when I was listening. So I thank you, Brother Jarmon, for playing that song. But normally when you come to a church setting, you have a text that comes from the Bible. Today I won't have that. I have instead a poem that I want to just bring to your attention. And it makes me think that it was written specifically for LaneTabernacleCME, although it was not. It's adaptable to LaneTabernacleCME. And it goes like this. When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile but you have to sigh, when cares pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. Life is queer with its twists and turns, as every one of us sometimes learns, and many a failure turns about when he might have won had he stuck it out. Don't give up though the pace seems slow. You may succeed with another blow. Success is failure turned upside down. The civil tent of the clouds out. It may be here when it seems so far. So stick to the fight when your heart is hit. It's when things seem worse that you must not quit. Now think of that poem. I think about LaneTabernacleCME. 1865, people in bondage for 250 years. And at the time, a president of the United States made a proclamation called the Emancipation Proclamation. And then thereafter, the Civil War was over. And this race of people who had been subjugated to bondage for all those years suddenly became free. Having received a promise of 40 acres and a mule, they received nothing. They went out into the world with nothing, no money, no property, nothing. But they did not quit. In 1877, there had been an agreement that had been made where the federal government had sent federal monitors down to the southern states to protect black people, to make sure that they and do all those kinds of things that people had the right to do. And for times things for black people were better. But because Rutherford Hayes wanted to be the president of the United States so bad in 1877, the federal government withdrew those federal monitors from the South. And then those white persons who had no love for black people at all started passing laws and started lynching black people to keep them from voting. And they took over the country again, where black people could not do anything at all, couldn't vote, didn't own anything at all. 25 years later, in the midst of all this, the height of Jim Crow, black codes, segregation, etc., Bishop Isaac Lane and some other folk, local people here in Jackson, got together and said, we need to establish in this sector of Jackson, Tennessee. So those ministers and a group of lay people with them came up with a few $100s and bought the property right up there where the Allerton Heights property. Those people built a church there. I'm sure there were on scene. Why build another church? Why build another CME church? You got Mother Liberty here. You got St. Paul, another church. I can imagine that Bishop Lane and the others heard that all the time while they were building that church. And just building the church. Why build the church? Why build the church? But I believe, and I was not there, but I believe that in 1903, Bishop Lane took to the pulpit and delivered a sermon that I believe answered his detractors. They said, why should I build, or why should we build a church? And he said, he said, this is the reason we should do it. We should do it because the Spirit of the Lord God is upon me. Because the Lord hath anointed me to preach good tidings unto the meek. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and to open up the prison to them that are bound. That's why we should build a church here. And I can imagine he may have also said that if you have any problem with that, you take it up with the Lord, not with me. So we know a lot about in the history of Lane Tabernacle. We know about all these marvelous preachers that came along and who served us in a very, very good way. Back in 1903, members. Pastors, they had members. They came with them to ride out that we have. So I want to highlight the members that we've had, both known and unknown. That dedicated band of members who bought the land and who built the church. And they did that, and they were able to do it because they didn't quit. 1903 came and they trotted on and did what they had to do. 1917, World War I broke out. But those members here did not quit. 1918, we had the Spanish flu. 500 million people around the world were infected. 600,000 Americans died. But you have to say in the depression that wiped out money and economic goods for all persons. But Lane Tabernacle survived it. Because the members and preachers did not quit. In the 1930s, the federal government came by and said that the land that Lane Tabernacle is on up here in Hamilton Heights, we want that property so that we can build a project that we can put white people in. The property was consumed and the property was lived in by black people. But the government wanted it so they could make a project for white people. Lane Tabernacle and Reverend Hawkins tried as hard as they could to get a fair price for the property because the government had done it by eminent domain. The government can always say that if you have property, private property, but they need it for the public good, they can take it. But it also says they have to give you a fair price. But from our history, we know that the government did not give Reverend Hawkins, did not give Lane Tabernacle the fair price, but they took the property. But Lane Tabernacle did not quit. Thereafter, Lane Tabernacle was wandering in the wilderness. They had to have somewhere to have service. So they had service at the CME Publishing House. They had services at Lane College. And then they had services right down the street at the corner of Cumberland and Hale Street in the St. Thomas Episcopal Church. And there were some people left, some of the flock left, but some stayed. And those stayed and kept Lane Tabernacle intact. They did that because they also quit. 1911, World War II. Lane Tabernacle persevered and didn't quit. In the early 40s, the members of Lane Tabernacle bought this land on which we sit right now. Didn't have enough money to build a church, but they built a basement. And they had church in that basement for several years because they wanted to keep Lane Tabernacle intact, and they would not quit. 1946, they completed the sanctuary for $40,000 that they borrowed and had to just pay on to get it completed. But they established this church. They built the sanctuary through all those hard times because they quit. In 1947, 1997, several improvements were made to Lane Tabernacle. Hot and cold water, new pews, rearrangement of the pulpit, property expansion, central heat and air, parsonage, new piano, parking lot, new carpet, van, stained glass improvement, Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts. Why did they do that? And why were they able to do it? Because they did not quit. 1997, the members of Lane Tabernacle built a fellowship hall in the back. There were distractors in the church at that time, saying that we don't have the money to do it. But because of the vision of leaders and the vision of members, we did it because we didn't quit. 2001, 9/11 came. Airplanes struck the buildings in New York. Terrorists were abound. Lane Tabernacle kept going. 2008, things got tight in America. Times became hard. The deregulation of the housing industry caused a collapse. Lane Tabernacle at times had difficulty meeting the notes that we had. But some members stood up and led us through that by them paying the note, paying extra money on the note, paying the obligations for the church. They did not quit. And in 2020, here comes another battle. Another pandemic called the coronavirus. Because of the coronavirus, churches were canceled. Some asked, would this be the end of Lane Tabernacle CME Church? The answer was a resounding no. Because we began Zooming and Facebook, started tweeting. We did everything we had to do because Lane Tabernacle does not quit. For 117 years, we've stood like a mighty oak, swaying in the wind, because of families and members of this church who never quit. Jarmon, Cunningham, Cole, Ewell, Glenn, Donnell, Pearson, Hudson, Bingham, Bledsoe, Anderson, Springfield, Hunt, Franklin, Blackman, Wallace, Catholic, Reed, Redson, Jackson, Tucker, McGee, Davis, Creighton, Long, Merriweather, Berkeley, Eddie, Wales, Hard, Henry, Brooks, my main man, Tom Brown, Hilton, Johnson, Conley, Hurst, Keys, Anderson, Neely, Baker, Robinson, Person, McCray, Shaw, Granberry, Jones, Starr, Mass, Williamson, Harris, Dunn, Rogers, Perkins, Puckett, Bennett, Brooks, Owens, Lyons, Wright, Tilt, Hatchet, Hollis, Jones, Pearl, Floyd, Ledbetter, and Cox. Lane Tabernacle persevered because of these members of our church. As I've said, we are open. We stand. We sway. We bend. But we do not break. We don't quit. We're still standing. And we'll continue to stand. So the message to anybody, to everybody, to any distractors, wherever they may be, always know, never count Lane Tabernacle.